that Planet X comes through the solar system, it comes closer or further and causes more or less of a pole shift. Now, the pole shift, to explain that, because people think, oh, a magnetic pole shift, that's what it must be. They're painting runways with the North Pole mark. And no, that's not true. There must be how many million runways on Earth, and they only repainted one, and it was in Florida, because when they labeled the compass heading on the runway in white paint, they got it wrong, so they repainted it. But that has nothing to do with the magnetic North Pole. Excuse me. So imagine this. You reach up in the sky, you're bigger than the whole solar system, and you're looking down at the solar system, and you grab it, and you take the whole thing and you lay it on a table. It's like a big pancake or like a fried egg. The sun is the yolk in the center, and all the planets are going around, and from above, they're going counterclockwise. Now, every single planet and the sun all have north poles, and all their north poles point upward. So that's what's going on Earth. Earth has a molten core of iron, and it has a north pole, polar axis, and a south pole, and the north pole is pointing up. Now, this is the hard part for people to realize, but when you hear it, you're going to understand. Granite weighs 200 pounds a cubic foot, so it's really heavy. The idea of granite floating doesn't seem to make sense, but what it floats on is molten iron. So of course it floats, because molten iron is so much denser than granite. Granite will not sink into the iron. So the crust of the Earth is made of granite, and there's an iron bar on the surface. It's the mid-Atlantic ridge. So from Iceland to Antarctica, iron upwells in the middle of the ridge. Like if you go from New York to London, it doesn't look shallow anywhere, but if you could look through the water, you would see there's a mountain range that goes from Iceland to Antarctica. And right down the center of that mountain range is a big crack. And iron is upwelling there, molten magma. And Planet X comes into the solar system from behind the sun, comes from Orion, comes around. 2003 it came around, and it was laying on its side, so its north pole was pointed at the equator of the Earth. So as the Earth turns, it tugs on this iron bar that goes from Iceland to Antarctica, but the Earth keeps turning. So every time the Atlantic Ocean comes around, it faces the sun, because that's where Planet X is. It's next to the sun, very close to the sun, but it's becoming more and more separate from the sun. And I sent you a picture, Mike, of a picture taken May 22nd, and it shows Planet X next to the sun. Did you get that?
I do have it, and I put it up on our homepage on latenightinthemidlands.com. People can see it on the picture slider there, and incredible picture.
Yeah, and you see, normally when you're looking towards the sun, it's so bright you can't see anything. But the tail of Planet X is 10 million miles long. Moons, rocks, iron oxide, hydrocarbons, and dust. All those gravel stones rub against each other and make a black dust. All of that is stretched out towards the Earth. Now, it's 30 million miles from Earth, but the tail is pointed at Earth, and it's rippling back and forth from static electricity. It's like, have you ever seen an aurora borealis?
I have, yes.
Yes, a lot of people haven't, but sometimes you can see them. They're different every time, but you'll see these waves of light rippling like the surface of a lake or in the ocean or something. And you're like, how can it move that fast? You know, it's almost like a laser show.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Gordon, we've got to take a break here, so
Okay.
hold on with me for a minute. We'll be about 5 minutes, so you got time if you need to do anything. And I'm going to put you on hold, so it's going to get quiet for you for a few minutes, and we'll be back.
I'll be here. I'll be here. I hope this is interesting for you guys.
This is incredible. Thank you, and just hang on with us, and we'll get you back right after the break. Let's bring Gordon James Giannotto back on with us, and Gordon, we're back, and all right. So Planet X, you say it was coming around, and did it get captured by our sun?
Who are you talking?
To you, Gordon.
I didn't hear the first part of that question.
Oh, I say we left off with the Planet X coming around, being something like 30 million miles away, and I asked, did it get captured by our sun?
No, because gravity pushes. What's happening is it came around going clockwise, and the Earth, the dark twin of Earth, and Venus were going counterclockwise. The three planets, all the same size, by the way, the dark twin, Venus, and Earth are all approximately 7,500 miles in diameter. They stopped this 29,000 mile planet from going any forward. So actually, the four planets, Planet X, Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin of Earth, which is a black cinder. It's got no oceans, no atmosphere, no people, and actually the Anunnaki are still mining gold on the dark twin of Earth, but using robots because nobody can live there. And but anyway, they stopped. And so that's illustrated in all these crop circles with a cup. There's a big circle, and then on one side of it is a cup facing outward, and in the cup are these three planets. So it's like trying to catch a dog in a corner. Dog darts to the left, you dart to the left to catch it, and then it darts to the right, then you dart to the right, and 2 hours later you still haven't caught the dog. So that's what's going on. It's sort of like a dance, but it's slightly below the ecliptic, and it's near it's 93 million miles to the sun, and Planet X is only 30 million miles away, so it's most of the way here already. But it what's happened is it got close enough that the tail got attracted to Earth from static electricity, and the sun hits the tail and lights up all that iron oxide dust. So if you go outside, which I ask everybody to do, take your digital camera, go point it at the sun and take a picture and tell me that's normal. It's not normal. The sun looks ragged. There's so much red iron ore dust and hydrocarbons and black sand dust in the atmosphere that the sun looks ragged. And at sunset or sunrise, you can see this bright spot on the in the picture, because you can't look at it with your eyes because you'll burn your eyes out. You'll see this, that is, this caterpillar on the side of the sun at the 4 o'clock position. So you'll see. Sorry about that, but
that's okay. You faded out for a moment there. You said you said sun, and then it got a little faded on us.
oh, so the Planet X complex looks like a caterpillar on the side of the sun between the 3 o'clock and the 5 o'clock position. So that's where the extra brightness is. But if you take pictures at sunrise or sunset, you'll quite often get a picture of that. So this picture that I sent you, the sunlight is lighting up the tail, and the light from the tail is reflecting back on the dark side of Planet X and lighting it up. So that's what that is. Now, believe this or not, the moons in the tail rotate in each tail separately, like a blender, and they make this little tunnel. Have you ever been blending something in a blender and you look down and you can look all the way to the bottom where the blade is because everything's on the side of the jar?
Yeah.
Well, those are called moon swirls, and they're like little tornadoes, and they're like tubes. And sometimes one end of it points at the sun, and the other end points at Earth. And then when you take a picture of the sun, you get these white circles that change. Each picture you take, the white circles are somewhere different, or maybe you might take a picture with a couple of them, and the next minute you take a picture and there's no white circles. Those are called moon swirls. And there's something happened that's never happened before, not even going back all the way into ancient history about other times there's been pole shift and Planet X has come through. And that is about a month ago, I think it was. And you can look this up. It's a video on the Quad Cities. It's Quad TV 8 on the on the Mississippi River. There's a bridge between Indiana and Illinois, I guess, and that there's a place called the Quad Cities, and I think one of the cities is Terre Haute, but I'm not sure. But anyway, they have a camera, a webcam on top of the bridge showing the traffic on the bridge, and as part of their broadcast every morning, they go, well, you could see the traffic is moving just fine east, but there seems to be a slight delay moving west, and we can see a truck that's overturned. So when that's cleared up, the traffic will be fine on the bridge. You know, that kind of a thing every morning, right? Yeah. So it's just after sunrise, and the sun is really low on the horizon, and all of a sudden this white circle of light moves across the Mississippi River, crosses up onto the bridge, goes down the bridge for a little ways, and then goes off the bridge across the river and disappears. And they go, whoa, what was that? You know, was that a helicopter with a spotlight? No, there's no helicopters. Was that a street light? No, all the street lights are out. What was that, a UFO? No, it's transparent because all it's doing is lighting up the river and then the bridge with a circle of brighter light. Well, guess what that was? That was for the first time ever. The tail of Planet X is so close to Earth that it channeled like a fiber optic cable light from the sun and illuminated the bridge and the river. Nobody's ever seen that before. It's never been reported in ancient history or anything. So we're seeing stuff that nobody has ever seen before. And if you put all these pieces together, you know, and I recommend everybody go to zetatalk.com and poleshift.ning, Ning.com, and they can that's where pictures of Planet X are being posted. They have a section where post your Planet X pictures here, and there are thousands of them from people all over the world. So it's really remarkable.
So Gordon, let me ask you this quick, because I know people would love to know. Like where I am in South Carolina, is there a way I could get a picture? And I mean, is there something special I have to do to get a picture now? Because one of my friends, he's a frequent flyer here on L&M. He sent me a real interesting picture, and I know he's a legit guy and he wouldn't make stuff up. And there was the sun, and then there was this bright object next to it, and it wasn't a lens flare. So
what I'm saying is anyone can do this now from anywhere in the world. Go take pictures of the sun, and from moment to moment, what you get will change. But I ask you this: ask yourself, is this normal? You know, for a long time since photography was invented, people would take a picture of the sun, they get this beautiful circular disc, and that's it. Now it's all raggedy because there's so much iron oxide dust and hydrocarbons in the atmosphere. And now you have this bright area from the 3 o'clock position to the 5 o'clock position on the side of the sun, and that's what it is. And you just go out and take pictures. I took pictures today. I mean, it's not normal. I mean, you can say what you want, but it's not normal. And those, you know, what I wanted to say about the Council of Worlds is not allowing selfish ETs to show their saucers. But on the other hand, there's all these skeptical people who are not ready to graduate, and they have to have an element of doubt. In other words, they would be shocked. They'd have a heart failure on the spot if they really thought there were extraterrestrials. So the Council of Worlds has required every saucer that show itself leave an element of doubt. And the element of doubt is where somebody else can say, see, those are just car headlights reflected off the clouds, or that's swamp gas, or you mixed up Jupiter and Venus, and you're an idiot, you were drinking, and that's the element of doubt. And on my show every Friday night, I've been asking the Council of Worlds, will you please eliminate the element of doubt? I mean, more than 50% of the world believes extraterrestrials are here now. So, you know, it's like Absolutely. If you take the vote, that would be the result.
Absolutely. Gordon, we have a call. We've got 978 area code. You are on Late Night in the Midlands. First name, where you're calling from?
Yes, James. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, James. I'm sorry. I never remember the number. It's probably a good
well, I went on my home line. I didn't want to have any problems with my cell phone.
Well, thank you. Well, you're on.
Calling from New York City or something?
No, I'm actually in Lowell, Massachusetts, Gordon. How you doing, Gordon?
Good, thanks. Thanks for calling, James.
Did you see that red sun this evening? Wow. I mean, it was just gorgeous. I tried to get a picture, but I was too much in the trees. But it was just beet red. I mean, and the sky around it was also a lot of red.
In the atmosphere, it's become really dramatic, and that's when you should take a picture just after sunrise or just before sunset, because you have the additional atmospheric filtering. And some people are getting, I mean, just go to poleshift.ning.com to post your Planet X picture here and look through those pictures. If that doesn't convince you, and they're from every country in the world, all kinds of people, cell phones, professional photographers, professional videographers, webcams, the whole bunch, it's there. You can't really. So what happens is that every day the planet X is below the ecliptic, and its north pole is pointed at the Earth. Well, when the Atlantic Ocean faces the sun, which means it's facing planet X, the north pole of planet X is 23 times stronger, the magnetic field, 23 times stronger than the magnetic field of Earth. So it acts like a giant bar magnet, and it pulls down the mid-Atlantic rift. So as soon as the sun rises over the Atlantic, the sun goes north of the equator, which it shouldn't always be doing, but it's doing, and then it tries to heat the North Atlantic. So do you remember how many hurricanes we've had so far this year in the Atlantic?
0.
That's right. And you remember how many we had last year?
1.
1, that's right. And guess what? Last year in the Pacific, there were 81 hurricanes. Well, they call them typhoons and cyclones. So instead of having an equal number of hurricanes in the Atlantic and the Pacific, now we had an 81-to-1 ratio last year, and that's the Earth wobble. So every day that when the sun rises over the Atlantic, it pulls Iceland down towards the sun, which means the sun is over the North Atlantic. No matter how much the sun is over the North Atlantic, it's never going to heat the water enough to cause a hurricane. But as soon as the sun sets over the Atlantic, then the North Pole of planet X pushes the North Pole of Earth back away. So now the sun is sitting just below the equator over the South Pacific. And guess what? It heats already hot water that makes terrible, terrible typhoons and cyclones. So that's the explanation for that. People have to start putting these pieces of the puzzle together to understand what's going. And the Earth wobble is getting worse every day. And that's why when you look at the weather thing and they go, oh, well, there's a giant loop in the jet stream. Well, guess what? The jet stream should go from west to east straight across. These giant loops are because the Earth every day is pulled down. The North Pole is pulled towards the sun, which shouldn't be happening, but it is. When the sun is over the Atlantic, and then as soon as the sun sets over the Atlantic, it's pushing the North Pole further away. And this is repeating itself every single day. And this is the weather extremes, because you have the Earth moving, but the air doesn't move as easily. So when the Earth tilts one way, like in the morning over the Atlantic, we go down into tropical air. And then as soon as the sun sets over the Atlantic, we spring back into cold northern polar vortex air. So, that's what's going on.
Have you got any idea why there's less static electricity in the air? I can explain why if you don't understand my question.
Oh, I understand it, but actually there's more magnetism, because what's happening is the magnetic effect of planet X pointing its north pole at the Earth is causing the core to roil, R-O-I-L, and the magma is surging and mixing in a way that it never did. And so the more heat is being transferred under the surface of the Earth. But that's causing the plates to start moving. And granite is mostly made of quartz. So when you squeeze quartz, you get the piezoelectric effect. So you get this electron flow. And then in the tail of planet X, you have this huge magnetic field. Now, it's interesting because NASA just sent up 4 satellites, and they go, we're going to measure the magnetic reconnection flux. Well, first of all, they made that up. There is no such thing. You can look it up all you want. There's no magnetic reconnection flux in the atmosphere. They're lying. What happened is they said, oh, do you remember a while ago they go, there's going to be really big aurora borealises tonight? And they said it's because of the solar flare. Well, space.com, which usually is the little minion of NASA. So whatever NASA says, they agree. It was a riot. I mean, for me, it was a riot, but most people didn't even know this went on. Space.com said, what flare? You got to be kidding. There was a small flare 4 days ago. There's no big solar flare. But sure enough, that night there was an aurora borealis. And what it was the magnetic field of planet X interacting with the atmosphere. Well, it's interesting that magnetism controls gravity and gravity controls light. So they knew there was going to be an aurora, and so they got caught, being accused of being stupid and making stuff up. And NASA doesn't like that, so they built these four I love this, magnetic reconnection flux satellites and sent them up. And what they're doing is they're measuring the magnetic field from the tail of Planet X because it's fluctuating so much, and that's what's bringing airplanes to crash, because these modern aircraft have motherboards and computers on board, and some of the layers in these chips are only 1 atom thick, and you get magnetic field overhead and an electron flow under shallow water, and there's an invisible lightning bolt. Like when you look at lightning, you think, wow, but you don't realize that there was an invisible bolt, like a precursor that went from the sky to the ground that you didn't see, but then the lightning follows that path. So what you get is this precursor lightning without the lightning, but that's enough to short out the chips, and that's what happened to Flight 447 that took off from South America in an Airbus and crashed in the Atlantic, and they go, oh, pilot error. Then the MH370 that took off from Indonesia, and they go, oh yeah, but the motherboards on these airplanes get fried. And not only that, but there was a ferry that caught fire in the Mediterranean, and what happened is the water was shallow there. There was one of these precursor invisible lightning strikes, and it shorted out the motherboard, and the engine started racing, and they couldn't shut it down, and it overheated, and the ferry burned, and all this kind of stuff. Like, remember when the South Korean ferry sank and all those high school kids died?
Yeah.
Well, what happened there was, as soon as the sun goes over the Pacific, it pushes the North Pole away. Well, the Earth moves, but the water takes a little while to catch up. So this ferry was going from South Korea heading southeast to the Hawaii of South Korea. It's a tropical island that people go on vacation. And all of a sudden, as the sun rose over the Pacific, it pushed the North Pole away, and the Earth moved north. And the water took a while to catch up. So the captain on the bridge said, I didn't touch anything. We were headed southeast, and all of a sudden we're going north 20 miles. And then we capsized. Well, the reason why they capsized is because the owner had added 100 cabins on top of the boat and made it top heavy, which had nothing to do with Planet X. But the fact was, the reason why it stopped going southeast and went north 20 miles was because the water was trying to catch up with the land. So there have been all kinds of strange tidal waves, not really noticeable or newsworthy, coming in all over the planet, because the Earth is moving fast during the day to come south over the Atlantic, and then it's moving north when the sun goes over the Pacific. So there's all these little odd things that have been going on for the last 2 years, which are all connected, and that's because of the proximity of Planet X.
I see.
Yeah, well, I was actually throwing out 1-inch sparks during the equinoxes for the years leading up to 2012. They were progressively getting bigger and bigger, and then in 2012, I was actually throwing almost like 1-inch sparks for that summer. And since then, it's been like nothing, no static electricity at all. And I'm wondering if it's like the chemtrails, so many chemtrails in the air, and it's just had the effect, or possibly in my body has dulled the effects, because it's always affecting me, the static electricity. And I
don't know what to tell you, because I live in Maine, and when it gets 45 below and there's no moisture left in the air, we get static electricity.
Right. Well, I'm not getting any that I usually get, and I was just wondering. All right, thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Michael.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you for the call, James. I appreciate it. And again, if you are not already a late nighter and you want to call in, guess the number between 1 and 10, give us a question or comment, and you could win a 3-month subscription. So we're feeling like giving today or tonight. So feel free to call in. You can also do it by chat, but if you're already a late nighter, we are getting questions nevertheless from some of our late nighters. And let's see, do we get to choose the planet we go to after death? Is one of the questions. But I want to.
Yes, if you're an advanced soul and you have no negative karma and your next step would be better taken somewhere else, yes, you will. But if you have accumulated all kinds of negative karma, created distortions, you're going to have to stay with that same group. And if you're selfish, you're all going to go to a selfish planet. And if you're mostly selfish but not completely selfish, you're all going to go as sea creatures to relive your karmic experiences and try and resolve them.
Nice.
So you don't really have the freedom, and that's something that you and your spirit guides decide after you die. And it's not entirely up to you because it depends on whether you have good karma or not. I mean, if you don't, that gives you the freedom. So by following the golden rule and being empathetic and caring about other people, you're going to find that you have freedom that you don't have otherwise.
Okay.
So,
and Adonna, no, that was the wrong number, but you're already a late nighter from what I understand. And here's another question. JH asks, how long does Planet X stay around each time it visits?
well, it's different every time, you see. So it came around in 2003, and people asked the Zetas, when is pole shift? And they said any time, because it's like trying to catch the dog that's in the corner. You know, you dart to the left, you dart to the right, and 2 hours later you're still trying to catch the dog, and you haven't, and the dog hasn't escaped either. So that's the situation. And we don't really know, but I'll tell you this. Do you remember there was a time when I think it was around 2011, all of a sudden these boxes were found on the beach in Oregon, and they were humming, and the people said, oh, that's a hoax, and what is it? But the ETs said that they put over 10,000 of these boxes on all the fault lines of Earth to stop the Earth changes, to give mankind a chance to have massive social change. Well, guess what happened? They put on the brakes in 2010 of the Earth changes, and guess how much positive social change there's been on the Earth since then? Almost none.
Yeah.
So now they just announced the other day that the Council of Worlds has taken their foot off the brakes. Now that's what the Operation Jade Helm is. The New Madrid fault is probably going to go off in September, followed by the San Andreas fault. So I can promise you this, the world that we live in now is not going to be the world we're living in at Christmas time. There are going to be so many changes. It's possible the economy would collapse. The country would be in chaos. We could have 30 to 50 million people homeless. And the special forces deployed across 11 western states has nothing to do with martial law or taking over. It's what's happening is the northern tip of South America is trying to move west, and it is going to move west 400 miles. And in order to do that, because the southern tip of South America is attached to Antarctica, in order to do that, there's going to have to be a crack developing in the southern part of South America on the Atlantic side. When that crack develops, then the northern tip of South America is going to move to the west. It's going to crush Central America. But guess what keeps it from moving? The southern edge of the Caribbean plate. Well, that's having volcanoes and earthquakes, incredible, and it's breaking off right now. So even the southern shore of the island of Jamaica is having tidal waves come in that they can't explain. But it's the southern side of the Caribbean plate is going to be detached and then sink. That's going to pull down Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. And this could all start happening this year. So if you have 30 million homeless people, you can see that the grid might go down, the economy would completely disappear.
Might this be why some of these states are making it be homeless is illegal?
Well, everybody, let me put it this way. No country in the world has offered to take the immigrants from any other country. All the leaders know what's going on. And not only that, but in the United States, no state has volunteered. Did you hear South Carolina volunteer to take all the people from Florida?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I have no confidence whatsoever in my state government anymore.
Well, the thing is that South Carolina is going to sink too. So do you think North Carolina is going to take everybody from South Carolina and Florida and Georgia?
I doubt that, and I think a lot of people will go down with the ship because the they
Right.
just won't believe any of this.
So the president is going to announce this, and at best, if he said, "My dear fellow Americans, NASA and JPL found Planet X in 1983, and that night President Reagan declared it to be a top secret by executive order, and I, Obama, have just overturned the executive order, and now I'm telling you there is a rogue planet in the solar system, and it's going to cause pole shift, and you can read Zeta talk about it." And that's what I expect to happen in September, because he has to do this before the first, because if people can look up in the sky and plainly see Planet X separated from the sun, then that means you're 49 days until pole shift. So, you know, right now you can't do that without using a welding filter or something to see that it's there, or a camera with a red filter on it. Otherwise, you can't see that it's there. But when that day comes, then mark your calendars, because you've got exactly 7 weeks until pole shift. So as Planet X comes closer, when it reaches, it's going to, when it causes pole shift, is going to be when it's 15 million miles away. And the way it's going to do that is the North Pole of Planet X is going to grab the mid-Atlantic ridge, and the crust is going to stop turning. Nothing will change the core. The core will still be turning. The North Pole of the core will still be pointed up. But then, once it does that and it grabs the crust of the Earth, it's going to zoom by and slide. As it zooms by, it's going to slide the crust up over the North Pole and then release it and continue. And that is going to make the eastern tip of Brazil the new North Pole.
Wow. Wow, that's some serious stuff here, Gordon.
Right. And then, but when it gets to 20 million miles away, it's going to actually pull the Earth 5 million miles closer to the sun. So we're going to have 6 days of the rotation of the Earth. Now, like I said, nothing changes the core. The core is still going to be rotating. The North Pole will still be pointed up, but the crust will not be turning. So those are what's called the 3 days of darkness. Well, of course, if you're in the Atlantic area, you're going to have the sun over the Atlantic Ocean, because Planet X is next to the sun. So you're going to have 3 days of light. But in the Pacific, they're going to have 3 days of darkness.
Well, if we get pulled would you say 5 million or 500 million miles?
No, I said we'll be pulled 5 million miles closer to the sun. So instead of 93 million miles, we will be 88 million. And guess what? The daily temperature for those 6 days in Chicago is going to be over 150 degrees. And all the forests of the Earth are going to dry out, and people are going to be dying of heat exhaustion, and water will be evaporating. And then as Planet X goes by, its tail, 10 million miles of rocks and dust, is going to hit the Earth for 3 days, a shower of rocks. So for the pole shift itself, you don't want to be near the coast, because there'll be a sloshing of the oceans about 600 feet high. Then but you don't want to be underground, because there'll be 9 and 10 earthquakes, magnitude earthquakes. And all the volcanoes will go off. So you won't even have a real clear view of the sky, because all the volcanoes will be erupting. And lava will be flowing, and there'll be huge quakes everywhere. And the whole southern United States will sink, and the salt water will go up the St. Lawrence Seaway to the Great Lakes and down the Mississippi.
Well,
and the eastern part of the country will be a continental island.
If we get that much closer to the sun, wouldn't that be enough to change things dramatically here?
No, it's going to go back. After Planet X leaves, it's going to go back, because there's a natural orbit for Earth considering its size, and it will go back to that. So it's not a permanent change. But what I'm saying is that these last days, the last week, is just going to blow people's minds. And there will be people who will just die of shock. And if you want to be a survivor, and listen, it's your right to say, I don't believe any of this, and if a tidal wave comes in, I'm just going to let it take me. That's fine. Do that. But if you want to be a survivor, go to Zeta Talk, and right at the top there's a heading called Safe Areas, and it lists every area in the world, and you can find out what's going to happen there. And like all of India is going to slide under the Himalayas like a dresser drawer slamming shut, and 1.25 billion people are going to die just like that.
And for those of you who will be listening to this on the Dark Matter Radio Network, I should tell you that link for Zeta Talk we'll have up on the website for you as well. because I know a lot of people are going to want to get over there and check this out. And, you know, Gordon, there's a lot of people also who don't take this serious at all. They say, oh, here we go again. But, you know, when you have this way of when you're telling me this information, I mean, you sound very, very, very sincere, and I tend to believe you. And so you're thinking by December we could really start seeing some major, major changes, if not the change.
Well, there won't be pole shift by December, but the thing is the earliest it could happen would be next April. Now, my wife had a dream that the first tidal waves coming in were pushing ice. Well, there's no ice in August. The ice is just beginning to form in December, and it's already formed and breaking up in April. So I think pole shift itself will occur in April, either next April or the April after. But now that the Council of Worlds has taken their foot off the brake, and they were holding up. See, I think that in 2010, when they put their foot on the brake, if they hadn't put their foot on the brake, I think pole shift would have occurred in December of 2012. I really do. But they put their foot on the brake, and they put it on the brake for like 2 years now. And now when they release it, it could be up to 2 years before pole shift comes, or we could be further. I mean, that's the point, is nobody knows exactly. And the reason why nobody wants, I mean, the ETs know exactly. You know, Zeta Talk, you can look at it, these predictions as a probable reality. And by that, I mean present events are create a certain outcome, and that's the outcome they're looking at, and that's how they're able to say what's going to happen, because it's been happening for 2 billion years, and they can see what's happening with the Earth itself, and they can see that there's no social change. People are not waking up. I mean, I talk to people and they go, yeah, pole shift comes, I'm going to die. I know it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like, okay, fine, or I'm going to pull up a chair and we'll let the first wave coming in. But the Zetas have said that pole shift will either occur because of magnetic trimesters, a concept I don't really understand myself, so I can't explain to you. I'd love to understand it, but I don't. But they said pole shift will either happen in August, December, or April. So I don't believe it's going to happen this August, because that's too soon. If it was going to happen in August, then in July we should have seen Planet X separate from the sun. And by separate, I mean that everyone in the world can look up and go, "Oh my God, what's that?"
Now,
and
who put the
if the president didn't announce it beforehand, then nobody's going to believe him. It doesn't matter what he says. But the likelihood is that it'll probably be in April of 2017, although I don't know that. It could be April of 2016. But I believe, based on subliminal body language and words that the president spoke this week, that he is planning to suspend the election and remain in office for a third term to see the United States through pole shift.
Yeah, and he did say that he believes he could win a third term. You know, that's kind of...
He won't win it. He'll just order it by executive action. Because once people see what's happening, I mean, who's going to want an election? But if he waits until all the disasters start happening to announce it, then people are going to go, the hell with you. You couldn't even tell about this. A planet comes into the solar system, and maybe a third to two-thirds of the United States population is going to die, and you couldn't tell us before this? They're going to say, whoever's ahead in the polls, they're the new president. So don't have an election. Donald Trump will be the new president.
Hey, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
I kind of like where he's been going, but now
you don't really want the Hildebeest to take over, do you?
No, God, no more Clintons, no more Bushes. I mean, that nightmare's got to end.
Right.
Somebody,
you know, the thing about Trump is, whether he would make a good president or not, I think he probably would. But you know what? He makes the other 15 Republican candidates look like dog poop just baking in the sun. I mean,
yeah, he sure does. He sure does. Hey, somebody asked who put on the brakes for
Council of Worlds. That's 1,000 benevolent extraterrestrial species working together. They've formed 40 working groups so they don't duplicate their efforts, and they're contacting every single person on Earth to tell them of what's coming and what's important. What's important, I hope you gathered by the trend of my conversation, is this is a school. And this is a school that hopes to graduate as many people as possible. And that's what's really important. It doesn't matter whether there's an apocalypse or anything. Are you trying to become a better person each day? That's the only thing that gives you a choice. If you want to remain with your eyes shut, your ears shut, and not listen to anybody and not pick up on any of this stuff and just continue what you're doing and then die, I guarantee you're going to be reliving this soap opera for a long time. But the rest of us, we're like, hey, there is something better and I want to go towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what I've been trying to do with this half of my life, I think, is just try to be the best person I could be. And I'll tell you, in today's society, they don't make it easy for you. I have another question here.
Sure.
The fiery dragon, tail snaps. How bad will that be on the Earth?
It could put a hole there. See, it's going to be showers of rocks. So there'll be some places that don't have rocks at all. But that's why when you go to Mesa Verde, you see that the Indians say the ant people told us to build under this overhang so that when Planet X comes through and has the shower of rocks, we'll survive.
Okay. All right. Well, Gordon, we're gonna take one more break here. I'm gonna put you on hold again, and then we're gonna come back, finish up. And lines are open. If anybody wants to call in, you may do so. So, Gordon, hang on with us for a moment.
Trying to answer all questions if I can,
Absolutely, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking time out with us. Get back to it with Gordon James Giannotto. And, Gordon, we are back, and I've got more questions from the chat. One is, will middle of North Carolina, with 670 feet above sea level, 350 miles from the coast, be safe?
The new sea level, after all the ice is in the wrong place and melts, will be 700 feet above sea level, so the answer is no.
Okay, and the guess was number 7, and yes, you are a winner. So whoever asked that question, Ira, yes, they won. He said Bunk. Okay, well, you're a winner, Bunk. Welcome to the late night family. So you say no, he wouldn't be safe?
No, you got to plan on at least 700 feet. Read Edgar Casey. He says the greatest seaport in North America after pole shift will be Omaha, Nebraska. Think about that.
Wow. That's good. Now, that's quite a thought. Now, I have another question here. Someone asks, what's your opinion on Marshall Masters' information on Planet X? And I'm glad they're not asking me that.
Well, I'm gonna say that he is an idiot, and he thinks that there's a constellation coming through, and Planet X is the constellation, and then there's a planet, and he thinks it's still 18 times the size of Jupiter, and it's outside the solar system. But I'll tell you, he had a webcam from Costa Rica, and he said, there's Planet X next to the volcano, and you could look on the webcam, and there was a blue thumbprint on the lens, and he goes, I'm calling Planet X Blue Bonnet. And then clouds came over the volcano, and of course the thumbprint was still there, and I was like, geez. And you can go to his site, Yowza, which is it's a joke, really. So,
yeah.
And there's other people like that. Gil Broussard thinks Planet X comes through every couple of years. You've got James McCanney, who's hoping that the CIA will promote him as the expert on everything, which is never going to happen. So there's a lot of people. They're really muddying the waters and mixing things up to create disinformation so that you won't believe it. But I think when you hear me speak, you know that it's true. I know I have an element of truth in my voice because I believe that what I'm saying, and it isn't just that all the pieces fit into the puzzle. I was talking about this before I started reading Zeta Talk, and I started reading Zeta Talk in 2006 because Janet and I said, well, I wonder if anybody else is saying what we're saying, that you've got to make a conscious choice to be unselfish. And And then I go, holy mackerel, they're saying everything I'm saying, but in even more detail. And since then, I've become friends with Nancy Leader. She's a wonderful person. If you looked her up on Wikipedia 6 months ago, it would say she was a horrible person. She's a cult leader. The Planet X is going to collide with the Earth, and she's an idiot. And then, mysteriously, 3 months ago, they rewrote it to compliment her and build her up, and nothing about this cult and a hoax and all this stuff. So there's obviously some government influence that on a really slow level, because as soon as they mention Planet X and you do a search for that, or Nibiru, you're going to come up with Zeta Talk. And when you do, you're going to realize, well, unselfish ETs have been telling us what's going to happen since 1995. And, it's going to be like, not only is there disclosure of Planet X, but there's disclosure of extraterrestrials. So I'm just trying to speed it up. And I've been doing this on my show for the last month, but I'm going to do it right now on your show. Repeat after me. We're going to call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. Now, the element of doubt is where when you see a saucer, somebody else can say, oh, yeah, that was swamp gas and you were drunk. So we're going to eliminate that, because more than 50%. So the Council of Worlds, they can't just mess with things on Earth, because that would involve them karmically. But when the majority of a planet vote for something and ask for it, they can grant it, and it's no skin off their back. So this is what I want you to say. Repeat after me. I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. And I ask that in all light and love. And it's time that everyone knows there are extraterrestrials, and that most of them are very nice people who we'd like to be friends with. So I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. And if you can say that out loud as often or with other people as you can, then this is going to speed this up. Because if you're waiting for Stephen Greer and Stephen Hawking and Seth Shostak to discover radio signals to tell you, and that whole thing, the $100 billion award for finding ETs, that is just to confuse the issue, because they're going to say, well, how can Gordon talk about contacting extraterrestrials if we're still looking for them? You see? And that's a CIA plot. It's a misinformation. It's like to dumb you down. And we've already been dumbed down so far that most of us aren't going to make it back, So, this is the time to say that's ridiculous. Why search the universe for radio signals when I have saucers landing in my yard? I have ETs in my yard. I have ETs in my house. I mean, you want to go to that Josh Tolley interview and listen to Janet talk about being the mother of hybrid children. I mean, Janet is really intelligent. She's a beautiful soul. She's very warm and emotional and kind. And, of course, they wanted to have her as one of the mothers of the hybrid race. So we've had a very interesting life, and if you want to know more about that, listen to that interview, because Janet doesn't do very many interviews, but if you ask Michael, we will do one with you.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd love to hear all about it. And so I know people are pretty curious as to what areas might be safe places. Any at the top of your head that come to mind where people...
Oh, yeah, the whole Appalachian Mountains from Maine to Stone Mountain, Georgia are all going to be above water. If you like being on a continental island, sort of like New Zealand, that'll be ideal. The whole center of the country from Lake Michigan all the way down to the Mississippi will be a 200-mile wide gulf of salt water. And the St. Lawrence Seaway will rip open wide. And there's going to be salt water all the way up over Kansas into eastern Colorado. And you don't really want to move to Colorado, because that's where they're going to have the carry-on government. So that's where the after-time president and the military are going to be in charge. So I think most of you would agree you don't want to be there.
No wonder they legalized the pot there first, right?
And Alaska is going to be is going to melt. The new equator is going to go through Alaska to Hawaii, and Hawaii is going to survive. But remember, the oceans are going to come up 700 feet.
Wow.
Now, the reason why I'm in Maine is because there's only two places in the world that are going to come up, and they're both going to come up about 500 feet. And even so, there's 3,000 islands on the coast of Maine. All but one of them will be underwater, but there'll be a whole new bunch of 3,000 islands a little bit further inland. And this mountain that I'm on is going to be an island. And I'm used to the ocean, and I'm looking forward to that. And so is my wife. Because, we've worked on commercial fishing boats. We love the ocean. And we'll have animals to hunt on land, and we'll go down to the shore and catch crabs and lobsters. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. Do what you got to do to survive. And we do have a call. We've got 585, that's Rochester, and this must be Bruce.
Yes, it is, Mike. I do have a question that Donna wanted answered.
Okay.
And her question revolved around safety for the Rochester, New York area, which is, we're 1,000 feet from Lake Ontario, but we're almost 400 miles from the Atlantic coast.
Right, but listen to this. The St. Lawrence Seaway is going to rip open, and the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence are all going to be at the same height of the world's oceans, which are going to be 700 feet higher than they are today.
Well, then I think we are toast.
That's what I'm trying to say to you indirectly. Now, one reason why, because if you ask scientists, they say, oh, if all the ice in the world melted, how high would the oceans go? And they'll go, oh, yes, we've already figured that out. It'll be 200 feet. They don't realize that there's going to be a huge brand new continent coming up between South America and Africa. So Africa is going to move to the east, South America is going to move to the west, and right in the middle is a brand new continent. And the English government is rebuilding all of its bases in the Falkland Islands because England and the UK are going to be completely underwater. The Queen has been planning to abandon her subjects. The most poorly informed people on earth are people who live in the United Kingdom. But the government is planning to go from the Falkland Islands. The minute that continent breaks the surface, they're going to go plant the British flag on it. Oh, it's sad. And we just signed a contract in Australia on the southeastern coast for the largest military base outside the United States. And what do you think that's for? That's because when all the ice melts in Antarctica, guess who plans to go and plant their flag on it and take it for ourselves is the United States. The thing
down in Antarctica.
The thing they haven't figured is that, and Russia's going, okay, you're going to take Antarctica, we're going to take the Arctic. So, but the thing they haven't figured is that all the governments will collapse. Because who needs government? If you have all unselfish people, then you don't need a government. The only reason you have a government is two reasons. Is other governments want to make war on you and you've got to defend yourself. But if they're gone and they're not doing that and there's only unselfish people, there's not going to be any governments trying to invade you. Then you've got selfish people. And God knows you need rules to protect yourself from them. But if everyone's unselfish, guess what? You don't need that either. So it's going to be a whole new world. It's not like they're going to rebuild the electrical grid and they're going to put in new roads and give you new cars. No, they're going to
it would be totally, totally different.
Right. It's going to be a new world. This is the beginning of the new age. You could cry and say, oh, if I don't have my job where I earn $900,000 a year and I don't have my Mercedes, it's going to be awful. But those of us like me, I'm living month to month on Social Security, and I'm thinking
here.
This is going to be the beginning of a new age, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to take a big broom to sweep the world clean of what's wrong, but that's what's coming, a really big broom, a broom the likes of which, see, the last pole shift 3,600 years ago when the Jews left Egypt, that only moved the North Pole from Greenland to the Arctic, which was a 12-degree shift. This one's going to be 92 degrees.
Oh, man.
This is big, and it's only going to take an hour. So you can imagine the crust.
An hour?
Yeah,
Holy.
That's how long it's going to take. And so as the rotation of the crust slows down and then stops, the noises of those are the trumpets that are described in the Book of Revelation, and it's going to be the scariest sounds you've ever heard. And that's going to be the fingers that attach the crust to the core are going to be breaking off. and the noise is going to be something else. So people are going to hear that and die. So you might have 60% of the world died in the tidal wave at pole shift, because you don't realize that the water collects at the equator. Well, if you stop spinning, the water is going to move back towards the poles. Then when it shifts and you get a new equator, it's going to move back to the new equator, and all of that's going to cause worldwide 675-foot tidal surges. They won't be waves, but the water will come in and it'll just keep coming in. And
wow.
And then
that's the thing when you said about the water going back to the poles, because you lose the centrifugal force around the equator area.
Exactly.
Wow, that's the information that you're putting out right now is just ginormous.
Well, see, I was picked as a future astronaut, so I have a real scientific background. I was like one of the brightest science and math students in the New York area. Then I started seeing flying saucers, and I go, if I get good at this, they're going to have me building missiles to kill people, and I don't want to do that because I've already seen flying saucers. So I go, well, they're covering up something here. And
right.
then I got a degree in psychology, and then I was a trial lawyer. Then I worked for the UN on a code of moral conduct for international corporations. Then I worked for the state of Vermont Environmental Board. Then I had a trial practice in Connecticut. And one day I said, excuse me, I paid my way through school by doing contracting work. So I never had a school loan. And the day I graduated from law school, I was completely paid up. And I graduated at the top of my class. So
that's fabulous.
So I'm not stupid, and I'm not somebody that's sitting around, oh, who's going to take care of me next? Or I'm not like calling you up and saying, what have you done for me lately? I'm like a self-starter. When I want to go do something, I do it, and I just make it happen. And I'm not going to wait around to be serviced. I mean, come on.
Right.
I've never been that way. So when I talk about stuff, I do have a great science background. And when I listen to these other so-called experts, I'm like, oh God, bad science, more bad science, disinformation, muddying the waters, confuse people, So people, do you know what they discussed at the Bilderberg meeting this year? I
have no idea.
Well, of course, because it's top secret. But my wife they had an agenda in the newspaper. My wife was reading it to me. She goes, global warming, global warming, global warming. Yeah. I said, stop that. I said, listen, I know what they're discussing behind the scenes. Planet X, Planet X, Planet X. Well, Nancy Leader took that as a question from the public, and the Zetas answered it, and it said, and this is what I love. You got to love the rich people, the elite and the powerful, the billionaires that all met at Bilderberg. They were discussing, after the economy collapses, how can we still get people to keep their noses to the grindstone? How are we going to get them to come and work in the factories? Oh, we could pay them with baskets of food every Friday.
Well, look, the information you just parlayed to me is beneficial to us all. Michael, I wanted to let him get back on in case anyone else has a call to come in.
All right, Bruce, did Adana have a number?
God bless you.
Yeah, and Adana says use the number 6.
All right, well, tell Adana she's 1.
Oh.
I like your method, Michael. I like it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, tell her it's all hers. She just got to email Ira, or he's in the chat, and let him know, and he'll hook her up.
Yeah, well, she can't talk right now because of the tongue surgery that she had yesterday, so she is hurting.
Yeah, and I wish her the best. Donna, get well quick. Put a lot of cold yogurt or ice cream or whatever it is you're eating on it, and it'll heal quickly, hopefully.
Right. And tell the guests that it was a pleasure talking to them, and I'm sure there might be other people that want to make a quick call.
All right, you just did.
Have you ask questions, I'll tell you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
I want to tell you that I opened up a mailbox so that people could send me postcards from where they are and where they're listening. So if you feel like doing that, you go get a nice postcard of your area, a nice scenic, And I'm going to put a big board up on the wall, and I'm going to put all the postcards I get. So far, I've gotten 3, and they're all joke postcards, but I'm looking for scenic postcards. But anyway.
Hey, that's a good idea. I like that.
But anyway, the address to write to me is P.O. Box 51. Well, they had like 400 post office boxes, and I selected 51 without realizing that's like Area 51, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's P.O. Box 51, Ellsworth, 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 Maine, and the abbreviation for Maine is ME, and the zip code is 04605. And you're going to post this on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, right?
I am, and I'm gonna do something else for everybody tonight too. It's the gift that keeps on giving here at L&M. I'm gonna post tonight's show. Ira's gonna post it on YouTube, the whole show, so everybody will get the entire show. You won't have to subscribe to listen to the second half. It'll be there for you because it's that good. It's that important. I'm not gonna lock it up. And we do have Ira on the line, as a matter of fact, right now. Ira, welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you for taking my call tonight. I'll be really quick. I know we're starting to run short on time. So this has been a fabulous show so far. I've loved it. I kind of wanted not really to ask a question, but to give a little bit of input, like to verify some of the things that you were talking about here. I don't know if you've heard about this or not. I'm sure that you have, but they discovered and announced a few months ago that they have found that there are vast oceans underneath the ground near the Earth's core. And in fact, they estimate that it could be up to 3 times the amount of water under the Earth as opposed to what's on the surface. So if something were to occur, that a shift occurred or cracks appeared and all this kind of stuff, that water could actually come up from the underworld, basically, up to the surface, and that would add a vast amount of water into the whole equation.
Okay, well, there is some water under the crust. The crust is a lot deeper than people think it is.
Yeah.
You know, they studied the volcano in Hawaii, and how deep it was. And it was 125 miles deep, but below that, the ground started getting cooler. So the lava uplift of the molten magma stopped at 125 miles. And people, you know, there's always been a debate on how thick the crust is, but I guarantee you there's no water in that molten iron ball at the beginning. But imagine how big the molten iron ball is on planet X. If it's 29,000 miles wide, its magnetic field is 23 times stronger than Earth's. So there's a huge difference between planets. But as to whether there's water all the way in the center, no. But as to whether there's a lot of water under the crust, well, I'm friends with this Colonel Donald Ware, and I know he's well-intentioned, and I like him a lot, and he comes to basically the same ultimate conclusions I do, but he's really big on this inner Earth, that there's all these cities there. I don't really know what to think of it, but I don't really subscribe to it. But, you know, the Zetas are interested in people surviving, but they're more interested in your spiritual growth, because if you just die and go and redo the whole thing all over again, would you like to redo your life over again? No, I bet you wouldn't.
If I can have the knowledge I have now, it might be fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, you're awake, and you realize that there's a road that you could take, and you're thinking, why don't I take it? Whereas other people who are asleep, they don't even know there's a choice about anything. If things keep happening to them, you know, and you can tell who the young souls are because they're not interested in anything. You tell them something, and it's like, whoa. But when you have an old soul, they gain mastery in one area, and the funny thing about that is once they become a master in one area, it's easier to become a master in another area, then another, then another, and another, and that's how you grow to a new level of consciousness. And you know, so that's if you're really awake, that's what you want to do, is become a better person, become telepathic, live longer, travel the universe, see all the sights, help make everybody heal and be healthy and happy. And that's why we're going to be known as the explorer race. We're going to build this fleet of spaceships. We're going to go out to every part of the universe, and we're going to land and see what the problem is and say, oh, man, we fixed that such a long time ago on Earth, and this is what you do about that. That's how you handle it. So it doesn't seem, as you look around, that all the biggest problems have been solved. But somewhere on Earth, there are people who solved every problem. And when we all become telepathic, all that will be accessible to each of us. So it's going to be a really exciting time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds great. I definitely appreciate it, and I love your idea of the differences between people and being the dog and the cat people. I liked that quite a bit. Anyways, thanks guys for having a great show. It's been wonderful.
Well, thank you for the call, Ira, and everything else that you do, of course, and thank you again. Now, I do have a couple more questions here in our chat room.
Listen, for you, Michael, I would stay on for another 2 hours.
Well, I appreciate it. And with you, I could do another 2 hours. It's that interesting. Crystal asks, she says, would anything happen to the radiation and all the other junk that is put on the Earth, like pollutions, like radiation? Would it go away? What would happen to all that?
That's a really good question, because let me tell you, every single nuclear reactor on Earth is located on a fault line, because where the land meets the water, guess what's right there? A fault line. That's why the water's right there. So that's the best question of all, because without the Council of Worlds transmuting the radiation to being harmless, we would all die. There's no question. And if you think about them spending all this time and energy slanting this towards success, working on this for at least 200 years to have this be a successful graduation, then why would they let it all get thrown away because of the selfish people who wanted nuclear plants? So only Canada and Germany have decided to close all their nuclear plants. You think the United States is going to? No. Obama wants to build more of them. So the thing is the aliens are capable of taking something like plutonium. Now, let's say that plutonium has a half-life of 125,000 years. So that means in 125,000 years, it's half as radioactive as it was. Then in another 125,000 years, it's half as radioactive as it was. Then it seems like it goes on forever. You'd never escape it. But the ETs have already demonstrated to the world, and I mean the military of Russia and the United States and England and all the developed countries, that they have taken a radioactive warhead and in front of the military made it harmless within like seconds. And they transmute the half-life of radiation from 125,000 years to 125th of a second. So they can do it. And if they don't do it, we're all doomed, and I have every faith that they will do it. But if you'd like to ask, I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate all radiation from Earth at the time of pole shift, to save us all and give us a chance to be in contact with positive extraterrestrials and rebuild a new Earth. So you can walk around saying that kind of stuff, and you should. Because, you know, if you don't put it in words, like, it's like you think, oh, I'm a good person, but then the next day somebody cuts you off and you start yelling at them, then you get out of your car and you beat the crap out of them. Have you proven that you're a good person? No, you failed the exam. So that's what this apocalypse is. It's really like a final exam. You can sit there thinking you're the most wonderful person in the world, but in a real situation, can you demonstrate it? I mean, I say, if you want to really prove that you've learned something, even if you have only 5 minutes to live, make sure that you spend that time trying to help somebody else. Don't be afraid of your own death. You're an eternal soul. You have a unique contribution to make to the whole universe that nobody else can make. Nobody has your sense of design, your sense of humor, your artistic talent, your interest in history, your ability to you know, whatever it is. You are actually unique. So each person needs to find out, like, what can I do really well that nobody else seems to do as well as I can, and do that. You know, make a contribution to life, and you're on the way to being somebody that will survive. You know, when your body dies, your soul is gonna survive, and you're gonna look back on your life and go, oh boy, didn't I make some mistakes? But at least I tried to be a better person every day, and that's what's important. So you have the apocalypse, you have the changeover to the fourth dimension, you have contact with ETs, you have the new race. All of this stuff is coming together right now.
It is. It absolutely is. And I have one more question for you, and you can give the quick answer to this if you like.
Okay.
But one of the listeners says, what ETs was it that you've made contact with? And I think you covered that, but they also asked, is it possible that they could be wrong or guiding you in the wrong direction?
No, no. Do I sound stupid? I mean, really, do I?
No.
Listen, have you ever heard anybody explain it this well? And I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but I'm just trying to tell you this is because I've spent most of my life. I'm 66. I'm going to be 67 in October, and this has been my major interest. And I get so excited. I want to tell other people. There's nothing I'd rather be doing than learning stuff and sharing it with people. And gradually, as I learned more and more and more and began to understand what the meaning of the universe is, to learn and then teach, I got so excited that I had to start sharing it. So, no, I have not been misled, and I have lived many lifetimes as a Pleiadian. I've gone on saucers to other planets. I've spent time in other civilizations like Andromeda and Arcturus and all kinds of places. My wife, the same for her, but she is in contact with the Zetas. Since before birth, she agreed that she would come and be part of the Zeta program for the new race. So it's been a really exciting time. And since we've been together, which is 25 and a half years, we have had somewhere between 3 dozen and 4 dozen times we have had ships close to us or in our yard or in the air above the yard, and we've had ETs in the house. And I taught myself telepathy, and I can ask the ETs things, and they will answer it for me. I don't ask them to do things for me, but I do ask them to do things for other people. But you can do that too. You can make a call. They can't respond to you consciously unless you ask them to. That's one of the rules of this veil that surrounds Earth. So if you're an unselfish person and you make a call to be contacted by unselfish ETs, that gives them permission to do that. Now, they are aware of where you're at in your life. So they may not land a saucer in your yard because what are you going to tell your spouse? And she's going to go, oh boy, I'm taking you to the mental hospital. You need some pills. So, maybe you would go and tell your boss and get fired or, disrupt your life totally. But Janet and I have arranged our life so that can't disrupt anything. And we've always been open to this, and now we've been together for 25 and a half years, and it's just grown stronger. So no, I'm not misdirected. We have things happening all the time, and because of the internet, I mean, listen, we don't have it easy. You think anybody in my town wants to hear me talk about this? And they go, well, he plows snow. What the hell could he know about,
Yeah, exactly. Well, Gordon, we are out of time. What I want to do is give you the floor real quick. Anything you want to get out there and plug, and I promise next month I want to have you and your wife back and do a full show with you. And wow, we cannot let it go that long. I had no idea it was that long. The time has just flown.
Well, it's been really good, and I've had a lot of fun, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you. And thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on freedomslips.com taking over the Royce Holloman show, which I've been on his show before, but he just had to go to the hospital. He's not in great shape. So I'm going to take over his show at 3 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, and then my show is on freedomslips.com at midnight Eastern on Friday nights.
Royce is a friend of mine on Facebook, and he's in one of our groups, and I've been following what he does and the illness that he's been fighting, and I pray for him all the time. I hope
we can say where 2 or more are gathered together in my name, there I will be, said Jesus. So we ask you, Jesus, please help Royce Holloman and give him health and hope and happiness. Amen.
All right, amen. Well,
I've been prayers. These Bible thumpers go, oh, he's dealing with demons, and oh, he's giving birth to babies without souls. And I guarantee you it's not like that at all. I mean, it's so far from that. I mean, just think of the most advanced, happiest people you've ever met. And that's what these unselfish ETs, they just radiate, unconditional love. And it's just an awesome experience being in their presence, and it's not like, oh, I got to go load my gun, But if you're selfish and you put in the call, guess who's going to contact you?
Yeah, the same people. You're going to send out that frequency.
Exactly, because the unselfish ETs are never going to contact you because they know what you're like.
Absolutely. Well, Gordon, I hate to rush you off, but we are done. We're out of time here. My station manager's going to start throwing rocks at me in a minute, so I got to run. But thank you so much for being with us. ZetaTalk.com, is that it?
Yeah, you should really go there, and that has the safe locations and everything you need to know. And the questions are taken on poleshift.ning.com, and once they're answered by the Zetas, then they're put on Zeta Talk. So there's 40,000 pages of questions from the public and the answers that have been going on for 20 years, courtesy of Nancy Leader, for free. You know, she's not in great health. She lives in a farmhouse in Wisconsin, and that's all she does. You know, she's not collecting money and becoming wealthy, so, you know, that isn't the point. The point is we're trying to save as many people as possible, and I'm trying to help her.
And I appreciate that, Gordon, and keep up the great work, please. And can't wait to get you back on back in August. And thank you again.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike.
All right, have a great night, my friend.
For you guys.
Oh, this is incredible. Thank you. And just hang on with us, and we'll get you back right after the break. Let's bring Gordon James Giannotto back on with us. And Gordon, we're back. And all right, so Planet X, you say it was coming around, and did it get captured by our sun?
What are you? Who are you talking?
To you, Gordon.
I didn't hear the first part of that question.
Oh, I say we left off with the Planet X coming around, being something like 30 million miles away, and I asked, did it get captured by our sun?
No, because gravity pushes. What's happening is it came around going clockwise, and Earth, the dark twin of Earth, and Venus were going counterclockwise. The three planets, all the same size, by the way, the dark twin, Venus, and Earth are all approximately 7,500 miles in diameter. They stopped this 29,000-mile planet from going any forward. So actually, the four planets, Planet X, Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin of Earth, which is a black cinder. It's got no oceans, no atmosphere, no people, and actually the Anunnaki are still mining gold on the dark twin of Earth, but using robots because nobody can live there. And but anyway, they stopped, and so that's illustrated in all these crop circles with a cup. There's a big circle, and then on one side of it is a cup facing outward, and in the cup are these three planets. So it's like trying to catch a dog in a corner. Dog darts to the left, you dart to the left to catch it, and then it darts to the right, then you dart to the right, and 2 hours later you still haven't caught the dog. So that's what's going on. It's sort of like a dance, but it's slightly below the ecliptic, and it's 93 million miles to the sun, and Planet X is only 30 million miles away. So it's most of the way here already. But what's happened is it got close enough that the tail got attracted to Earth from static electricity, and the sun hits the tail and lights up all that iron oxide dust. So if you go outside, which I ask everybody to do, take your digital camera, go point it at the sun and take a picture and tell me that's normal. It's not normal. The sun looks ragged. There's so much red iron ore dust and hydrocarbons and black sand dust in the atmosphere that the sun looks ragged. And at sunset or sunrise, you can see this bright spot on the in the picture, because you can't look at it with your eyes because you'll burn your eyes out. You'll see this, there's this caterpillar on the side of the sun at the 4 o'clock position. So you'll see. Sorry about that, but
that's okay. You faded out for a moment there. You said you
that Planet X comes through the solar system, it comes closer or further and causes more or less of a pole shift. Now, the pole shift, to explain that, because people think, oh, a magnetic pole shift, that's what it must be. They're painting runways with the North Pole mark. And no, that's not true. There must be how many million runways on Earth, and they only repainted one, and it was in Florida, because when they labeled the compass heading on the runway in white paint, they got it wrong, so they repainted it. But that has nothing to do with the magnetic North Pole. Excuse me. So imagine this. You reach up in the sky, you're bigger than the whole solar system, and you're looking down at the solar system, and you grab it, and you take the whole thing and you lay it on a table. It's like a big pancake or like a fried egg. The sun is the yolk in the center, and all the planets are going around, and from above they're going counterclockwise. Now, every single planet and the sun all have north poles, and all their north poles point upward. So that's what's going on Earth. Earth has a molten core of iron, and it has a north pole, polar axis, and a south pole, and the north pole is pointing up. Now, this is the hard part for people to realize, but when you hear it, you're going to understand. Granite weighs 200 pounds a cubic foot, so it's really heavy. The idea of granite floating doesn't seem to make sense, but what it floats on is molten iron. So of course it floats, because molten iron is so much denser than granite. Granite will not sink into the iron. So the crust of the Earth is made of granite, and there's an iron bar on the surface. It's the mid-Atlantic ridge. So from Iceland to Antarctica, iron upwells in the middle of the ridge. Like if you go from New York to London, it doesn't look shallow anywhere, but if you could look through the water, you would see there's a mountain range that goes from Iceland to Antarctica. And right down the center of that mountain range is a big crack, and iron is upwelling there, molten magma. And Planet X comes into the solar system from behind the sun, comes from Orion, comes around. 2003 it came around, and it was laying on its side, so its north pole was pointed at the equator of the Earth. So as the Earth turns, it tugs on this iron bar that goes from Iceland to Antarctica, but the Earth keeps turning. So every time the Atlantic Ocean comes around, it faces the sun, because that's where Planet X is. It's next to the sun, very close to the sun, but it's becoming more and more separate from the sun. And I sent you a picture, Mike, of a picture taken May 22nd, and it shows Planet X next to the sun. Did you get that?
I do have it, and I put it up on our homepage on latenightinthemidlands.com. People can see it on the picture slider there, and incredible picture.
Yeah, and you see, normally when you're looking towards the sun, it's so bright you can't see anything. But the tail of Planet X is 10 million miles long. Moons, rocks, iron oxide, hydrocarbons, and dust. All those gravel stones rub against each other and make a black dust. All of that is stretched out towards the Earth. Now, it's 30 million miles from Earth, but the tail is pointed at Earth, and it's rippling back and forth from static electricity. It's like, have you ever seen an aurora borealis?
I have, yes.
Yes, a lot of people haven't, but sometimes you can see them. They're different every time, but you'll see these waves of light rippling like the surface of a lake or in the ocean or something. And you're like, how can it move that fast? You know, it's almost like a laser show.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Gordon, we've got to take a break here, so
Okay.
hold on with me for a minute. We'll be about 5 minutes, so you got time if you need to do anything. And I'm going to put you on hold, so it's going to get quiet for you for a few minutes, and we'll be back.
I'll be here. I hope this is interesting.